we were initially going to only be doing 2 movies, but then there was kind of a John Cusack surge, unexpectedly.
You got the bug to watch something else.
So now we're doing 4.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with 300. Rise of an Empire.
You sure it's Empire? I saw a nation somewhere.
So anyway, yeah, our theater resign isn't exactly. So, basically, I was starting to lose my faith in this genre because already this year we've had Hercules and Pompeii, and that didn't go so well. So,
Nope.
Let me say that I liked 300, the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it came out like March of 2007.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I saw 300 was probably about 2008 then.
Wow.
So, but I still remember it vividly, so it's all good. So I went into this one not knowing how to feel because obviously Gerard Butler is there, but he's not really there. That is, it's archive footage and then his severed head. So, sorry if that was a spoiler. For some reason you're watching this video having not seen the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
And the very first scene of the movie is Xerxes cutting his head off. So, apparently it's been a question whether this is a sequel or not. We now have the answer to that.
Yep.
Rise of an Empire is kind of a prequel to 300. It's also kind of a sequel to 300, and it's also kind of going on while 300 is happening.
Yes.
All at the same time, and we keep going back and forth in that. Because we start at after 300 has ended, then we go back and get Xerxes' backstory, and we learn that the protagonist in this movie is the guy that killed Xerxes' dad, I think.
Yes.
So everything connects in a way. And we have our main villain though, who is Artemisia, who is Eva Green. Who is surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. That's not to say I expect bad performances from her, it's just movies haven't really given her the chance to show off.
Her acting ability?
Yeah, since The Dreamers.
Yes.
She's had, Kingdom of Heaven and Dark Shadows, and fuck you, Casino Royale's overrated.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry, I pissed off the Brits now. But,
And Bill.
So, I kind of like this movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome. It depends on what you, I guess, are expecting, because obviously Zack Snyder's not the director, but that doesn't really matter because they basically just hired, I don't even remember the director's name, but they basically hired a director to come in and totally 100% replicate Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
There might have even been more slow-mo in this, I'm not sure.
It's possible.
But you would never tell the difference because the movies have the exact same feel, which is okay, because I suppose complaints can go either way. You could say, well, they brought in a new director, but he clearly had no vision, he was just copying Zack Snyder. But then there could have been the other argument where had he done something totally his own, people would have complained that it would have been totally off in tone with the other movie, so...
Which this one definitely is not.
Yeah, this one it's probably better. They just brought in a no-name to copy Zack Snyder.
It worked really well.
So, I think he still got a producer credit, so he was probably on the set anyway. This was probably being made around the same time as Man of Steel, because this was supposed to come out like September of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same, it doesn't have the first one kind of had the novelty of being like a fresh vision. Like nobody had seen anything like the first 300 when it first came out. Obviously this is the exact same style, so that freshness is kind of gone, but it's still... all the awesome visuals are still there, and the somewhat not so great acting, but it's not really the kind of movie that calls for that.
No, not at all.
And you also obviously have your simultaneous plot going with Lena Headey, who actually did come back, as well as David Wenham. basically the only survivors of the first movie. And Rodrigo Santoro is obviously back to do Xerxes.
Yeah.
Who you might know as Jim Carrey's lover in Philip Morris.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's... I imagine this movie is exactly what fans will want out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we went in, I was expecting something that was kind of like, oh, this is some straight-to-video sequel shit that somehow got a theatrical release. But it's... As far as visuals, it's on par with the first one. And it's completely blood-drenched.
Yeah.
Like you were talking... When one of my complaints about Pompeii was it was weird how bloodless it was.
Mm.
Well, we get all the blood in the fucking world with this movie and all the gore and... Obviously, it's the really comic booky blood, so it's all within fun. Like, there are... Most of it, obviously, it looks really fake, but it's supposed to because it's comic book-like.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of kind of gross things in there, which are perfectly fine. Like the horse coming down and crushing the guy's head into nothingness. That was wild.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is just... This movie definitely goes into... I always love talking about how much I love when Over the Top goes well. Because Over the Top is awesome when done right.
Yes.
This is extremely over the top in the best way. So over the top, I recall a scene where Eva Green severed a guy's head and then kissed it right afterwards. We're talking that kind of over the top. And then throws it towards the camera, obviously. Blood spraying everywhere. It's very Kill Bill like.
Oh yeah.
Like somebody loses a limb and it's just everywhere. Made more fun by the fact that this is in 3D. Now, you may just kind of shrug that off. This movie's 3D is shockingly good.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it looks really, really good. Like, I would actually... I never, ever, ever say this.
Nope.
But you should really see this in 3D if you can.
Completely agreed.
If you want to shell out, like, $4 more. There just so many great... It works for the battle scenes, obviously, and there's also... It's not like Pompeii, where they only used it just so a bunch of raining ash could go in your face, or when Hansel and Gretel did it so they could, like, throw chunks of wood at you. So many chunks of wood flying at you in Hansel and Gretel.
Mm.
This actually uses 3D for what it's meant to be seen, how it's meant to be seen. Those scenes, like, where Xerxes goes out and he's above the crowd, those shots are awesome. There's one particular underwater shot that the 3D made look really good. See, I never get to say that. I'm really happy to say to actually see it in 3D if you can, because it's actually worth it, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I know that's hard to believe lately, but trust me. There are some things that are kind of... Every now and then it reaches a dull point, and it gets, I suppose, laughably not so good when it's just the characters interacting. One particular scene that stands out that kind of just struck me was, there's this, I know it's meant for comedy, but it struck me as totally weird and out of place. Somebody is watching a bunch of fights happening, just like little, practice spars or whatever. And Lena Headey walks up and sees this guy watching these fights, and I can't remember the exact line, but something along the lines of, is he here just to stroke his cock while watching men fight?
Yeah.
Was that phrase around back then, I wonder?
That word was thrown around a lot in that movie, actually.
It seemed very modern for Lena Headey to just walk up and say, so you're here to stroke your cock?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Go either way.
I thought for a second you were actually Googling, was stroke your cock around back then?
My tablet would not like this, so I'm not going to.
There's also a very, you know what, I'll put this in the most flattering way possible. This movie has a very memorable sex scene.
That's the best way to put it, too.
That basically channels Xenia Onatopp in Goldeneye. That's also, which is really funny because Eva Green is a Bond girl. I didn't think about that till just now. It also has a really awesome ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ending is very, like it kind of somewhat leaves it open, but it's still satisfying. So I don't know if they have intentions to keep going or what, but this one's supposed to do. It's expected to do well at the box office. I don't know if it's how well it's actually going to do. But I think it should do well because I think everybody, if you're a fan of the first one, you'll be perfectly fine with this because it's basically the same movie and it's obviously it's happening at the same time as the last movie, but all the fun is still there. I don't consider it pointless for that or anything.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to see the same story from the other perspective. So and we get some of the aftermath and the prequel territory. So yeah, everything works well. There's just some questionable things, but for what people are going to go there for, it absolutely delivers on.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, as if you're like, I don't know, if it's not your thing, I would be cautious, but I can't recommend it enough to people who will see it for what it is.
Mm.
So,
I don't want to like this movie. Going into it, I liked the first one a lot. I actually watched it theatrically. And I can't really say that with movies that have, like, prequels or sequels that come out many years down the road, like this one. But I will say that, yeah, the 3D is done to the best of its capabilities. Mm-hmm. I think it's exactly what you're expecting it to be. And, yeah, I definitely recommend it.
It wasn't what I was expecting, because I was expecting something like... I don't know why I thought it would be, like, straight-to-video-like, but...
It comes off like that. It's the vibe I would get.
Normally when you take he may not be totally beloved now, but when you take a director as high profile as Zack Snyder and you replace him with a guy whose name I don't even remember, I think that's kind of sets you up to think it might not be something as grand. But yeah, it delivers just fine. If you didn't know Zack Snyder wasn't the director, you'd never notice.
His name is Noam Morrow.
Does he have a credit? Oh, and the guy that plays the main guy, who's so insignificant I didn't even mention him. The main character is one of the Cody brothers in Animal Kingdom. That's the only way I know him. But
I thought he looked familiar, but I couldn't tell where I know him from.
Yeah, he's kind of wooden and doesn't have much personality, but he serves his purpose. He's the best replacement Gerard Butler he can be.
Yeah, he is.
Alright, going on to a completely different movie now.
Yeah.
The other movie that came out this week was Mr. Peabody Sherman.
So we finally get it, so Ashley can stop putting it over because we're about ready to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know, I was having trouble with it at first because the first half hour felt really uneven to me.
Okay.
And I didn't really get a lot of laughs out of it. And it felt mostly like, I don't want to sound condescending, basically aimed strictly at children, basically. But it gets progressively better as it goes. It's certainly a lot better than the last animated movie that came out with time travel in it. So, yeah, Freebirds.
Freebirds.
So, no, this is much better than that, I promise. I'm a little unprepared for this, though, because I know their origin. I know they come from didn't they come from Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Yeah, Fractured Fairy Tales of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
I'm pretty sure I saw some of them when I was 4, but I've got no memory whatsoever, so I can't. So my opinion has absolutely nothing to do with the source material at all.
Mine does.
So
I very much remember it.
Basically, the concept is, I wondered that the whole time. Obviously, since I didn't know anything, my first thought, like everybody else, was, I knew Mr. Peabody was Sherman's dad, but I just had no idea how, and I was really hoping the movie would explain it. And sure enough, 2 minutes in, he says, "When I adopted Sherman," and he tells us the whole story. So, luckily that's cleared up right away if you don't know going in. So basically, Mr. Peabody has a time machine, and he basically teaches Sherman history by going back in time.
Yes.
And living it, basically. Which basically causes Sherman to be a know-it-all on his first day of school, and that gets him in trouble. There's this girl, Penny, oddly enough, Penny is Ariel winner from Modern Family, and Mr. Peabody was Ty Burrell, obviously.
That was great.
Ty Burrell is perfectly cast, by the way.
He even does the voice too.
Like,
That's identical to the original Peabody voice.
like, see, I didn't know that, but just based on the movie alone, I could tell. I could not imagine Mr. Peabody with anybody else's voice. So, of course, obviously, whoever originally voiced him. So Penny starts a fight with him and starts to bully him because his dad's a dog. And when he bites Penny out of anger, they realize that there's like a lot of build up
Yeah.
to what the actual plot is. So Mr. Peabody's gonna have Sherman taken away from him, so Mr. Peabody gets the idea to charm Penny's parents in hopes that basically they'll stick up for him and he won't get Sherman taken away from him. So Penny and her parents come over, and then through an argument, he accidentally tells Penny about the time machine, despite Mr. Peabody's strict orders not to.
The one thing of you not watching trailers that it's unforgettable.
We hear it twice.
Yeah.
And of course, he ends up showing Penny the time machine, and they go back to Egypt and basically fuck everything up. And it goes from there. And they go from it for a while there. I was actually kind of afraid the whole movie was going to be in Egypt, and I was like, "Well, they're kind of wasting their concept here a little bit." But they end up going. They go to Egypt, then they end up in Italy with Da Vinci and the Mona Lisa, and then they end up in the Trojan War with Agamemnon. It's really funny, the Trojan War scenes. There's actually a battle, and my mind was still on the night before, and I was like, "Where's all the bloodshed? Where's the blood flying at the screen?" Oh wait, that was the movie last night. So yeah, but it gets a lot more charming and less uneven and funnier as the movie goes. There was one. Speaking of it being, obviously there's like puns galore for people who love that. I know you do.
I hate them, but for this, the subject matter allowed for them back in the day, so it makes sense.
Yeah. It's like its thing.
It really is. The opening setup in the movie is exactly how a quick couple-minute Mr. Peabody and Sherman vignette would go on Fractured Fairy Tales.
And what was great is I criticized it earlier for being mostly oriented to children as far as the humor. There is one joke. There is one joke I'm almost surprised they got away with.
Yep.
And it really stood out. I'll go ahead and say it. If you don't want it blown, you can skip ahead. But it involves, obviously, at some point in a time travel movie, there's going to be a time where one character meets a duplicate of itself.
Yep.
And it turns out that if Sherman basically touches the other Sherman,
Crossing the streams.
Yeah, it's going to cause a whole problem with the space-time continuum.
Yes.
So, after this has happened, Mr. Peabody comes running in and says, "Sherman, I came here to stop you from touching yourself."
Every adult in the theater laughed out loud.
And of course, there's adult characters in the movie around at this time.
Yep.
As well. But yeah, it was. I was glad that they really used their concept because like I said, I never saw the trailer, so for a while there I was assuming the whole movie was in Egypt with the whole young King Tut thing, and they have all these clever jokes, they go with the history of the characters they're using. It kind of felt like I was getting a real Road to Morocco vibe from it,
Mm-hmm.
the Crosby Bob Hope movies. Yeah, the laughs weren't as consistent as I was hoping they would be, but it happens. Like it gets the laughs are a lot more closer together as the movie progresses, and there's this running joke that I don't know. I'm just never much of a fan when a movie has a running joke because it gives kind of an overconfidence in something that could fail, and it makes the movie look bad in hindsight. It's probably something that originates from the original stuff, but the continuing joke where Sherman doesn't get it.
Yeah, that's original source material.
The air freshener disagrees with me.
It disagrees with everyone.
But, you know, regardless of all that, it's got, like, with all, like, these cynical movies and stuff that are out, especially, you know, when animated movies try too hard to be adult-oriented, this movie has an innocence about it that's, like, really hard to not love. So, you know, basically any criticism I gave this movie, just, it doesn't matter.
His vocal cast is awesome, too.
Yeah, so I think people will like it just fine. And like, looking back, I'm pretty sure I'll like this movie a lot better in time than I do at this particular exact moment. So, yeah, it's perfectly fine.
And it's something I did not know, that there's an additional writing credit, which is probably the reason why I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. Even more, because obviously I was really excited for this movie. I guess it's the animated equivalent for me of the Get Smart movie, because I really liked Peabody growing up. Well, apparently that there was additional dialogue. I don't know how this works, if you give like a couple scenes here and there, or a couple words here and there. Thomas Lennon and Ben Garant were writers on this. And they actually had voices in the movie, too. This voice cast is just excellent.
Yeah, some of them are really easy to figure out, like Patrick Warburton and Dennis Haysbert.
Stanley Tucci.
Leslie Mann.
Mel Brooks.
Who was he?
He was Einstein.
So, yeah, it's puns galore, and it's all in good fun, so, yeah.
Definitely recommended for sure.
Yeah, I feel bad for criticizing it, because it just is what it is. There's no reason to there's no reason to pick it apart. It's perfectly fine.
And considering what other animated movies we've had recently, it's good to see a nice little chain of good animated films with the Lego Movie and now Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
The animated market is so desperate that Frozen comes out on DVD in 2 weeks and it's still in theaters.
We have one theater for it, one showing.
Okay, so now we're on to our smaller movies. This next movie actually comes out today in limited release, but I think it's also on video on demand or something like that. One of those technology things
That we're on right now, talking to everyone.
This movie is called Grand Piano, and I had not heard of it until like the day before I saw it. It's basically phone booth with an orchestra. Is how I thought of it. Anyway, Elijah Wood is this well-known pianist who plays with an orchestra, like a really, really prestigious thing. And he kind of has this... 5 years ago, he was playing like the most important piece of his career, and he fucked up a couple of notes. And while the audience never notices, pretty much everybody in his field knows, and it still haunts him. Well, today he's getting ready to do play like the biggest concert of his life. And he has stage fright, of course. Like, not just for tonight, like all the time he has stage fright. There's a really funny scene. The very first scene of the movie is him on a plane, and he's landing in town to where he's going to go to the concert. And we see him freaking out on the plane, and the guy next to him is really calm, and he's like, "Oh man, I remember when I used to be afraid of flying." And he's like, "You're going to be fine." And then Elijah Wood's character wants so badly to not play this concert. He wants so badly for something to go wrong, but he doesn't have to go on that stage. He looks at the guy next to him and he says, "Do you think the plane is going to land safely?" And the guy says, "Oh yeah, sure." And his response is, "Oh, I'm screwed now." Then he's talking to his girlfriend or his wife on the phone about how he's on his way there from the airport, and he's like, maybe there'll be something wrong with the piano, or maybe like the theater will get shut down.
Wishful thinking.
But anyway, and it's his mentor's piano, and his mentor was like this massive music icon. So, the concert begins, and he sits down at the piano, and he gets his sheet music. And he opens the sheet music, And written in red across the sheet music is play one wrong note and you die. And then we see one of those red laser pointers on his chest. And a sniper is watching him from the audience. And if that sounds preposterous to you, the sniper clears it up immediately. His line is, you wouldn't believe what you could get away with in a crowded theater when all eyes are on the stage.
Nice.
And of course his earpiece is hijacked by the sniper, and that's how they communicate. And the sniper is John Cusack. And this is probably gonna be one of the best movies of the year. Like, I mean, I'm saying that now because this year is looking really, my hopes aren't very high for this year, looking at the calendar.
Yeah.
But this movie is just this under the radar Hitchcockian thrill ride. And it's really short. It's 85 minutes, but there's a 4-minute opening title sequence, and the end credits are 10 minutes long, so the movie's about an hour and 10 minutes. And it just completely flies through, and there's, like, twists and turns everywhere, and it's unpredictable, and it's just everything is going for this movie. Like I was saying, it's one of those movies where just by the concept alone, it sounds like it could get, like... This would be one of those movies I was talking about with Nonstop, where you kind of get to a halfway point, and your start is really good. You're either going to go above and beyond, or you're going to crash and burn. This movie just keeps piling on consistent thrills, I guess. And it's got a really great visual style. Like, I don't want to give anything, like, I struggle to say anything, because I feel like almost everything from here on is a spoiler, so... I can't give specific examples, but I will say the director of this movie has obviously a very clever eye for visuals. Like, sideways shots and angles and lighting and transitions. And it's just consistently great throughout. The pace is, like, nonstop, and it's got a really, one of the best things about it is, despite the fact that this is an obvious Hitchcockian thriller, this movie has a really wicked sense of humor. Like, the humor in it is really like I was surprisingly laughing, like, a lot. And just, like, you just have to see this movie as soon as possible. It's short, sweet, and to the point. It's not like one of those things where you have to say, well, I pretty much have to, like, make a whole gap to see this. It's without credits, it's only an hour and 10 minutes long, and gets right to the point. So yeah, it's gonna, like, I don't know, it's gonna have to be a really good year for this to not be in the top 10, I would say.
Wow.
I know it's early, it's like the first week of March right now, but this will definitely be one of those big surprise, this is definitely going to be that movie where probably around summer and everybody's talking about movies that they saw in the first half of the year, everybody will be bringing this movie up as that surprise movie they didn't see coming.
This is the Iceman for you this year, as of right now.
And there's also I said I don't want to give too much away, there is a really awesome character played by Alex Winter in this movie. Yeah, he's Bill, right? Yes. Bill S. Preston Esquire himself.
You know it.
Plays a very dark character in this movie, and it's awesome. So, yeah, I don't want to give anything else away, so that's pretty much all I can say, apart from the fact that you really need to track this movie down. Okay, now that we've talked about 3 movies that are great and just deliver perfectly on what they're selling, we go on to our last movie, which is a movie that it went in the limited release last week. I'm a week late on it. This movie also has John Cusack, only it stars him. You've probably seen advertisements for this movie everywhere. IMDb is advertising it a lot for some reason. This movie is called The Bagman, and it looked awesome by the cast list and the plot. We start on a plane and this plane is owned by a crime boss that's played by De Niro. De Niro looking shockingly like Dustin Hoffman, but
Wow.
I guess they couldn't get Dustin Hoffman, so and De Niro pretty much do anything. But De Niro, the setup reminded me of Knockaround Guys, which most people have probably forgotten about that movie, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time, so I always remember it. It was giving me that feel. De Niro's on this plane, and he has basically an errand boy who is Cusack. And De Niro says, you need to go get this bag, and you need to go get this bag, and then you go to this hotel, and you go to the room, and you just wait for me to get there. And that's all you have to do. Except you absolutely cannot look in the bag. Like, you can't even think about looking in the bag. You do not open the bag for any reason whatsoever. And then it turns into Reservoir Dogs.
Interesting.
We go from that, and we cut straight to the hotel, and all the shit's already gone down. Cusack has been shot, and he shot somebody. But we don't see what happened. All we know is he has the bag, and he's at the hotel now. And you know shit's gonna go wrong, because shit always goes wrong when John Cusack checks into a hotel.
Yes, indeed it does.
Whether it be 1408, or Identity, there will be bodies when John Cusack checks into a hotel. And you got a lengthy supporting cast. The creepy hotel manager is Crispin Glover, who wheels himself around in his mom's wheelchair, just because he's weird. You have Dominic Purcell, who I think was on Prison Break. I think that's the show he came from. He came from a show. He is the sheriff of the town. I didn't recognize him at first because he's wearing like these big nerdy glasses, but he's still jacked Dominic Purcell, so he'll basically break you in half while reading the dictionary. It's what I got from looking at him. The girl in it is a girl I've never seen before. I think her name is Rebecca DaCosta, I think. She's basically a prostitute who's hanging out by the motel. And she gets involved, of course, because that's what, women do in these movies. That's their part, is to get involved in shit they're not supposed to, She couldn't be, you know what, fuck it. That's and her pimp is Sticky Fingers.
Really?
Yeah. How long has it been since you heard that name?
The MTV boxing match with Simon Woodstock is the last time I heard that name.
Yeah. Basically this movie thrives on that. It thrives on being the movie with quirky side characters. There's this character called the Russian Dwarf, who is basically, and he's an actual little person, and he's basically the henchman of the pimp played by Sticky Fingers. That's basically his point.
And he's continue to say that.
And he's like bald and has an eye patch, and I don't know. It's just, it's like it was. I don't know what the fuck this movie wants to be. I have no idea. And I think that's one of the main things that brings it down. It also kind of felt like it was trying to be. I don't know why. I kind of got a little bit of a vibe of Tape, the Richard Linklater movie that has Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard and Uma Thurman in it. Mm. It's kind of all these movies combined. I thought before I actually started watching it, maybe it was just Cusack in my subconscious. I was also thinking about The Ice Harvest. Yeah. So basically, take Knockaround Guys, Tape, and The Ice Harvest, and put them all together, and throw in quirky characters for the sake of being weird, and you have this movie.
This doesn't sound bad on the surface.
Yeah, but
explain why.
Well, here's the thing. It's basically, it started off okay. Like, you have this, I like the De Niro character, which something you can't say very often anymore.
Nope.
De Niro wasn't, I suppose you could say De Niro wasn't just doing this for the paycheck. I'd say, he actually wanted to play this interesting character. They have to do the thing where they build him up to be some hard ass, because he has a scene that's just totally random where he's interrogating a girl in his house, and then he just beats the fuck out of her face, and then he gives her a wad of money for a plastic surgeon.
Wow.
He has this great, oh my god. You have to, okay, I'm going to tell you this, but you have to actually see and hear it to believe it. De Niro has a big monologue towards the end.
Okay.
And he's talking about, and it's actually a pretty good monologue. He has a few funny lines, even though they make you say, "What in the fuck was that doing here?"
Okay.
He has a funny line where he's talking about, it's a really good delivery. This is a quote, by the way. I'm not adding anything or subtracting anything. These are the words that come out of De Niro's mouth. He's talking about how the girl may not be what she seems. Shock, surprise.
Mm.
And he's saying, do you not find it just a little weird that you just happen to meet this girl at a motel of all places? Well, I guess that's not totally weird. I met my wife at fucking Staples. and then, I shit you not, this sounds so made up, I promise. I swear to God it's in the movie. De Niro is this hard-ass crime boss, right? And he's basically there to get what's his by any cost.
Okay.
So this movie gets so preposterous, there's actually explosives with a detonator in it by the end of it. But,
oh, God.
De Niro's talking about... I'm just going to say it. This hardened crime boss goes on a monologue about how an episode of Full House changed his life. That's awesome. He said, you remember the scene? You remember the episode where Jesse goes bungee jumping? And he just leaps for it. For his love for Rebecca. Yeah. This hardened crime boss, played by De Niro, says that the bungee jumping episode of Full House changed his perspective on life.
That's almost worth watching just to hear that.
So, yeah, I was really excited that Crispin Glover was in it, because he's always fun to watch. He's basically playing a weirder version of John Haas's character in Identity, if you want to get specific.
Interesting.
But it's just, you know... It tries to kind of be unpredictable and trying to take you places you're not expecting, but it just kind of blows up in its face. And it's one of those movies where there's a bunch of, like, conveniences and, like, lazy writing.
Uh-oh.
Like, those movies where they're obviously throwing lines in there that they think are clever and snappy and Tarantino-like, but it doesn't work. There are scenes that are, like... It's obvious that the scene is supposed to be really suspenseful and, like, the tension is building. But the scenes didn't feel suspenseful. I don't remember being on the edge of my seat really at all. So, and it gets dumber and dumber as it goes. So, yeah, this was like...
Such a shame.
Yeah. So it had a good setup and everything, but it just gets more and more ridiculous as it goes, and it thinks it has no idea what it wants to be. It's trying to be some bizarre comedy in some places, and then some shocking thriller in the other sense, and they're trying to do a somewhat love story with this girl, which is just completely pointless. And it starts to get obvious and predictable after a while, and just... I just wasn't feeling it.
That sucks.
I mean, if you think that would be interesting and you want to check it out just for curiosity's sake, go ahead, but... I don't know.
I warn you, it's not what you think it is.
So, that's pretty much the movies for this week.
So, next week, looks like we're going back to 2.
For now, yeah, it sounds like.
Sounds like we're doing Need for Speed, which comes out next week, as well as...
Well, you wanted me to,
Yeah, I do.
I saw Nymphomaniac yesterday.
Yep.
You want me to review it. I don't know that I want to review that movie on camera. There's really no way to there's really no way to review that movie and not be totally and completely inappropriate.
Well...
So, I don't know, maybe we'll get that figured out down the road, but...
There may potentially be a review coming in the distant future, we don't know exactly yet.
Oh, God.
We'll find out. It'll definitely not be for the faint of heart, or pretty much for anybody, mainly. So next week, like I said, Need for Speed, as well as, it looks like Tyler Perry's Single Moms Club, which gonna start something really interesting coming to pop very soon. I don't know exactly when, but very soon. So, AJ, any parting words?
That's it.